All right. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. My name's Tucker. I use he, him pronouns. I'm an educator with Wenatchee River Institute here. And just a quick show of hands, is this anybody's first time at a Wenatchee River Institute program? Okay, awesome. Yeah, cool. Thank you for being here. So Wenatchee River Institute, we're a nonprofit. Our mission is to connect people, communities, and the natural world. So anything involving getting people outside, connecting with each other, connecting with nature, is things that we like to be a part of. So we kind of have two branches of our education. We do youth programs. Right now we're deep into our summer camps. We do week-long camps here, getting kids outside and doing all sorts of activities around the valley here. And then the other branch is our community programs, which includes Red Barn events like this. We have seasonal nature walks. We have various workshops throughout the year and all kinds of things. So if you are not on our e-news yet, there's a little sign-up sheet that we send out every other week that announces all of our events. Or you could always just check out our calendar. We always have things going on throughout the year. So thanks again for being here. I want to also introduce and thank a couple people who are helping out tonight. We have two amazing volunteers. We have Lissy, who's serving drinks. Thank you, Lissy. And we have Jeremy in the back, who is running our tech station, who's going to be enabling people to watch online. And this presentation will also be recorded, so you can watch. People can watch in the future as well. So it'll be on our YouTube channel. So thank you, Lissy and Jeremy. Another aspect of WRI is we like to connect to the people whose land this is here. And we like to take a minute to acknowledge the indigenous people of this land. So I'm going to read our land acknowledgement for you all here.
The link's not up.
This land acknowledgement was created alongside the Shim-Pashkwashu people. We are spreading the message they wish to be spread to the public. The land Wenatchee River Institute sits on is the ancestral homelands of the Shim-Pashkwashu, or Pasquosa, or Wenatchee people. The Shim-Pashkwashu, meaning people in between, had villages positioned along the Wenatchee River and surrounding areas. Their ancestral homeland extends from the Cascade Ridge throughout what is now known as the Wenatchee and Okanogan valleys. The culture and economy of the Shim-Pashkwashu people centers on taking care of the land. They fish, hunt, gather roots and berries, basket-making materials, and medicines. The Shim-Pashkwashu are named within the Yakima Treaty of 1855. Language to establish the Wenatchee Reservation was never followed through, even with the needed surveying completed. Many Shim-Pashkwashu now live on the Colville Reservation, 150 miles northeast of Leavenworth. They were forced off their land here, and the U.S. government moved them to this reservation. The Shim-Pashkwashu people are still alive today. They continue to practice their culture, harvest their traditional foods and medicines, and hold their ceremonies passed down from their ancestors. Most people won't see or notice them, but they continue to be on the land they're connected to. Their traditional language is Inhamchin, an interior Salish dialect, and I'd like to welcome you all by saying hello in their language. Tilhusht. We offer this land acknowledgement as the first step to amplifying indigenous voices and recognizing the harm done to them as a people. We stand as an ally to recognize their connection to the land and their rights to practice their culture on these sacred lands. We encourage all to learn about the indigenous people of the place you call home. Wenatchee River Institute is committed to sharing this land acknowledgement and following up with other actions to educate and be respectful. All right, so thank you, everybody. I would like to take another minute just to thank a couple other organizations. We have a lot of local businesses and groups that sponsor these Red Barn events. So you'll see some of their logos up here, but I do want to shout out some of these by name here. So thank you to our sponsors, including City of Leavenworth, North Central Washington Audubon Society, Sleeping Lady Mountain Resort, Ludwig's German Restaurant, Leavenworth, Pine Village, KO DOA, Icicle Brewing Company, Obertal Inn, South Restaurants, München House, Gustav's, Hotel Pension Anna, Leavenworth Chamber of Commerce, Syndicate Smith, Rhine House, Blue Elk Inn, the Nature Conservancy, Wild Birds Unlimited, Leavenworth Coffee Roasters, Leavenworth Village Inn, Sage Mountain Natural Foods, Chocolat, Barron House, Cove Resort at Fish Lake, Tierra Learning Center, Riverfront Rock Gym, and Rimmer and Reuter Construction. So thank you to all those local businesses that sponsor Red Barn events. So we really value our sponsorships, but we also rely on donations here as a nonprofit. If you do feel moved to donate, after this presentation, we have a donation basket and a QR code for Venmo too if you don't have any cash. And you can also donate on our website at any time. So yeah, we appreciate that. One last thing, I know this is a lot of talking, but thank you. We are kind of moving forward with a new strategic plan that we've kind of put into place within the last year, and part of that is trying to collect more feedback. So we're going to be actively kind of asking for feedback throughout our programming. So you might have seen a QR code slide. This one here, I'll pull this back up at the end if you wouldn't mind at the end. Scanning this is like 2 questions. You could just say a few things or say a lot of things, whatever you like. We really appreciate any feedback that you have for us. So you don't have to do it right now, but I'll pull this back up later. So without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker tonight. So Rose Piccinini is a senior wildlife biologist for the Colville Tribes Fish and Wildlife Department. She graduated from WSU with a degree in wildlife ecology and has been working as a field biologist for the last 20 years. Now, as a district biologist, Rose works in the population management division, where she participates in population management for all wildlife species on the reservation. Seasonally, she can be found in the field trapping and monitoring Canada lynx and gray wolves, counting waterfowl and loons, checking on eagle nests, and flying in helicopters to count moose, deer, elk, and bighorn sheep. So please welcome Rose Piccinini.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here. It was a beautiful drive today. It did get up to 104 on my track. You know, it's just a taste of what's coming this weekend. So yes, thank you for the introduction, Tucker. Like he said, I'm a wildlife biologist for the Colville Confederated Tribes. I've been working for them for about 20 years. Excuse me. I did take a little time off when I had my son, but since then and before then, I've worked on some amazing projects with the tribe. There's a team of biologists that do fabulous work, and I'm going to share some of those success stories with you guys here tonight. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview on some of the successful reintroductions of species that the tribe has brought back to the reservation. I'm going to talk about the sharp-tailed grouse, the pronghorn, bighorn sheep, and then each of those species I'm just going to give kind of a brief overview of the project and its success, and then I'm going to move into the bulk of my talk tonight, which is going to be focused on the Canada Lynx project, and that's the project that I'm currently the lead of. So we're going to go into quite a bit of detail on that project. So when working for a tribe, it's always important to understand the culture and the traditions that go into the goals and objectives of a department that I work for, which is the Fish and Wildlife Department. And one of our goals is to bring back native wildlife that once existed on the reservation, but has been extirpated for a number of reasons, whether that's over-harvesting, loss of habitat, or any of the other number of changes that have caused the removal of wildlife over the years. So the sharp-tailed grouse is a species that's super dear to my heart because that was the species that I studied first when I came to work for the reservation in 2004. I didn't have an appreciation for the shrub steppe habitat, and through that project I learned the incredible diversity of the plants and animals of the shrub steppe and just their importance in building that very sensitive ecology of the shrub steppe habitat. And it's a beautiful system. It's It's one of the systems I think that's the most overlooked when looking at wildlife habitat. I hear people often say, oh, you work out in the shrub steppe, isn't that boring? Nothing lives out there. So, you know, I think a part of these projects is educating people in the importance of those overlooked habitats and those overlooked systems that people don't really understand. The sharp-tailed grouse is also a very iconic species for the tribe. I don't know if any of you have had the joy or the privilege of attending a powwow, but their prairie chicken dance is mimicked off of the sharp-tailed grouse dance, as well as some of the other prairie chickens, the sage grouse and the prairie chicken as well. But it's an incredibly beautiful dance. And these little guys, this is a male sharptail, and he's in his beautiful breeding plumage. And their dance, when they come to their lek, which is the area it's what we refer to as the area that all the males come to in the spring. And basically what you have is you have this big joining of all the males, and they're coming and they're competing, and they're seeing who can dance the best. And they're showing off to all the ladies that are sort of out around the ring. And when you go to a powwow, that is sort of the feel that you have as well, is there's a circle of onlookers and the dancers in the middle of that. And these guys, they're dancing, the sound that they're making is actually coming from their feet, the actual dancing of their feet. And so it's also lends itself very beautifully to the traditional dance, where the dancers are doing that intricate footwork, and that's what actually makes the sound versus, you know, the rough grouse and some of those other ones where it's more of a vocalization or a wing beat. So joyful little creatures. So the tribe has been working on reintroducing, and it's more like augmenting, because there's populations of sharp-tailed grouse in Washington state, but they're all declining, and they're declining mostly because of loss of habitat. Fire has a lot to do with that. So the state, along with the tribe, goes up to Canada, up to BC, and traps these grouse up in Canada and then relocates them either to the reservation or to state protected wildlife areas within their original and historic habitat. So we don't have a ton of time tonight, so I'm not going to go into a lot of the numbers for you, but at the end, for sure, if you guys have questions about the specific numbers or anything like that, I'm more than happy to go over that with you. I'm kind of going to go by that a little quickly just so that we can get through it. I want you guys to be able to see everything that we have. But you can see so the red is actually areas that have been affected by wildfire, and the yellow is the reservation boundary. So as you can see, most of that shrub steppe has been burned fairly recently. Bighorn sheep, that's an incredible success story for the tribe. There was originally one population, and it was around Omak Lake, and that population of bighorn sheep kept shrinking year after year, so that it was pretty much genetically not viable anymore, and it just kept declining. When we started looking at the feasibility of bringing bighorn sheep back, we didn't look just at bringing them back to Omak Lake. We looked across the reservation of where there existed habitat that could support bighorn sheep. And one of the areas that they were brought to is the Hell's Gate Game Reserve. And it's sort of, when we had the reservation up, it's sort of that tail that the Columbia River wraps around, right? So that area used to support bighorn sheep, and so that was one of the areas we relocated bighorn sheep to. This has been an incredible success story. The bighorn sheep population in Hell's Gate Game Reserve has grown so much that it's actually hunted, and we give out a tag for tribal members to hunt them. Now, when I say that bighorn sheep are healthy, I always have to sort of say that with caution, because I feel like out of most wildlife species, bighorn sheep are just like around every corner is something lurking that can kill them. And I'm not just talking about predators. These guys are super susceptible to disease. And excuse me. One of the diseases that they are very susceptible is MOVI, and it's a disease that causes a pneumonia in them. It's found in domestics. And so the domestics are carriers, but they're not affected by it. And so when you have areas where you have sort of any type of overlap with domestics and wild sheep, you have this prevalence and an occurrence of this movie, and it can be decimating to an entire herd. It can kill an entire herd. So our bighorn sheep populations that are in Omak Lake and connect all the way up into BC. And so we're working with BC, and we're trying to find solutions to the disease problems that our sheep are facing, as well as the populations up in BC. And as I said, they, there's now a hunted population in Hell's Gate. We used to also hunt another population on the north half of the reservation, between the current reservation and the Canadian border, as well as Omak Lake. But due to the disease outbreak, we have canceled all hunting for those populations. Pronghorn, so while all of this work is being done, and we've got boots on the ground with sharp-tailed grouse, and we've got biologists bringing in the bighorn sheep and monitoring the bighorn sheep, then, in the background of all of that, in our time off, the biologists are also doing feasibility studies and looking at habitat of where were pronghorn historically on the reservation, and do we currently have lands that are open enough and have enough acreage with enough forage to bring these guys back? Well, the answer said yes, we think that we do. So we, kind of hit the road again, and we started reintroducing pronghorn. You notice I don't have the word pronghorn antelope up there. They are not actually part of the antelope family, even though everyone calls them pronghorn antelope. So this is some of the, the glory work that everyone talks about when they hear about what being a wildlife biologist is. I should actually have a picture over here of somebody just on a computer in an office, because that's what we do a lot of. But, no one wants to see pictures of that. This is what they want to see pictures of. So, this is, here you have a pronghorn who has a cover over their face. Any animal that we're handling, we're covering them. We're covering their eyes, bringing their stress level down. You also see snow on the ground here. Wintertime is the best time to be doing this. It keeps the animal's stress levels down with the temperatures. It's overheating, overstressing. It's a huge cause of mortality when you're moving animals around. So keeping them relaxed, keeping them cool, those are all things. And as you can see, they're going sort of for a wild ride there. That's a long line on a helicopter. The muggers are going out. The crew is hobbling them and then hooking them up to the line. They bring them into the biologists and the veterinarians that process them. Then they're put in a standard horse trailer and hauled across the country and let out in the middle of nowhere for them. And amazingly, they're doing great. So, we go out every winter and we count these guys by helicopter, although this is usually how you see them running, because they know the sound of the helicopter now, and it's very open country, so they know we're coming and they start running. But no, we have our wildlife technician out right now doing surveys and counting the babies, and so they're out there. They were released in 3 locations on the reservation. Up here you see the reservation. I guess I have one of these fancy little things. Reservation in red. The 3 locations where they were released, and then the location that they decided that they wanted to take up residence. So surprisingly, you can see these tiny little legs that they have. They swam the Columbia River with those little tiny legs, as you can imagine them doing that. They don't really look like they're built for swimming, but enough of them did it that there is a good population in Grant County of them, and they seem to be doing well. So they're a lot of fun to go out and monitor for, and they're having babies. And we've initiated a wildlife-friendly fencing, so all the fencing that falls within the range of pronghorn has to be built to have first specs for pronghorn to safely cross. And bison. Bison is our latest and greatest one that you guys have probably seen in the news or heard that the tribes brought back. The bison that we brought were gifted to us from the Kalispel tribe, and they were brought last fall. They were released into an area around Buffalo Lake, sort of in the same area where we have our sharp tail and actually some of our pronghorn. So The buffalo were brought back, and then I have a really great photo of this last week, one of our biologists went out, and right here, this is what we look for when we want to know if we're being successful or not, right? So it's not just having animals on the landscape, but it's, are those animals being successful? And we rate success as, are they being able to reproduce? And will those offspring survive? The goal of bringing bison back, eventually we would like to have a huntable population on the reservation. It's part of the culture, it's part of the history of the people that are living on that reservation and have come from that from those UNA areas. And so having the bison there is definitely a connection for them to the ways of life that they were torn from when they were forced to move onto the reservations. And so we're currently writing a management plan based on cultural values and input from the membership and tribal council. I think that should be the last one, unless I have another buffalo picture. I've got a couple more. There's the reservation, shows the area that they were. If any of you have been watching the news lately, you also know that this is the burn, scar, and perimeter for the Swawilla fire, which we're experiencing right now. Sort of shut our reservation down last week. All our roads were closed. There was a lot of air support, all the towns were evacuated, but the towns have been, mostly people have been able to return to home, and the roads have been reopened. I went out last week and traveled this area by boat, and the fire looks like it was actually going to be probably a beneficial fire. It was burning pretty low to the ground, low severity. It's looking good. The buffalo are still okay. They were spotted farther north, so they moved away from the fire. The fire was not moving too fast, so they were able to move out of that area. We don't know yet about the pronghorn, but they're super fast, so I'm sure they made it. Yeah. And then we're going to move into our lynx. Let's see where I put it. And do I do anything, or is it already automatic? Slideshow.
Rose, can I ask you one quick question on the buffalo?
Yes.
You said that you had 35 and you had 4 to 5 new calves, and is that a good ratio for, like, do you know, is that, that seems like, that's pretty good.
So we got a lot of, I think, young males. So that's why we only have four babies so far. Yeah, I think our ratio was more males than females. But yeah. So now we're going to kind of switch gears and sort of restart. Looking at time, 7:30. So yeah, this project started back in 2015. Well, I'm going to back up a little bit. So when I first got proposed the idea of taking over the Lynx project and seeing what it would mean to bring Lynx back to the Colville Reservation, you know, I met with a bunch of people who I considered lynx specialists, people who've dedicated their careers to working on lynx. I didn't. As you know from the presentations that I've given, I sort of was just doing lots of different projects and moving around kind of a lot. And so I definitely didn't consider myself a lynx specialist. I still don't. But you know, I sort of built myself a team of people that I had a lot of respect for, who had spent a lot of years studying lynx, who had done a lot of research on lynx. And, you know, we all thought that this was a great idea, bringing lynx back to Washington, yes. So, you know, we all pat each other on the back and we, you know, support each other, and it's great. But then when you start throwing your project out for other people to see, that's where it really comes down to it, right? Because when you surround yourself with like-minded biologists and we nerd out on it and we all think, yeah, it sounds like a great idea. But then when we get to the funding, that's always the crux with all of these projects, right? It takes a lot of money and a lot of time to get something like this off the ground. Well, we had an amazing amount of partners say, yeah, we're going to fund your project. Not only do all of you biologists think it's a great idea, so do we. We think that this makes sense. It was so popular that we even had funding agencies come to us and say, hey, we heard that you're thinking about doing this, and we want to support that work, and we want to give you money. So it was amazing. It was the first project I've ever worked on that had that kind of support going forward, that it just from day one, everyone was positive. Everyone was excited about it. I'm not sure. I want to say it's because they're so charismatic. No, I'm not sure. I think it has to do with just recognizing that they have a place on the landscape and that they should be here and that they were here, and that the tribe is looking at bringing them back and kind of righting a wrong and sort of restoring that balance that used to be in the high elevations in the Kettle Crest. So the question I'm always asked is, why are you doing this project? Why are you doing it now? What does it all mean? So I can't really take credit for a lot of that. A lot of that work happened not by me, but by other individuals, organizations that have been kind of keeping their eye on lynx in Washington way before this project started. And one thing that sort of was a trigger was the 2015 fires out of the Methow area. And so that was our only known population of lynxes over in the Loomis area in Washington. So when we had the 2015 fires that hit, and they destroyed a lot of lynx habitat. And so it sort of made people even that weren't keeping an eye on it stand up and say, if we have another year like that, we could lose lynx in Washington completely. And so that was a bit of a scary thing to think about. And so folks got together and said, well, if we were going to bring lynx back to protect them from complete loss in Washington, if we lose that Loomis population, what does that look like? What does bringing lynx back look like? Is it feasible to do? And if so, where should we do it? So a report was written, a lot of models, a lot of science, a lot of stuff that was done in the background by a lot of really amazing people, really dedicated people. And it came out with a study that said, yeah, actually, it does make sense to bring lynx back to Washington, and it makes sense to put them in the Kettle Crest. And the Kettle Crest runs right here into the reservation. And so because of the tribe's history with bringing back species and all of our previous success stories, we were the lynx now I'm going to blank on the name. The Lynx working group came to the tribe and said, we think it makes sense to bring lynx back. We have the science to support it, and we think that the tribe should be the ones that do it. And we said, okay, let's do it. So they came to me and said, Rose, we want you to be the one to try and figure out how to do this. We have the science, but we need money and we need logistics. So one of the things that was important that happened while kind of all of that was happening, all those conversations were happening, was that WSU did an intensive camera study in the Kettle Crest, and they detected lynx there. And the reason that that's super important is it changed the thinking that this wasn't a reintroduction, it was more of an augmentation. Right? So more important for me doing all the permitting than really for you guys listening to the project, but it still was an important thing to get to know that there was a way that lynx were moving into and out of the kettles, because you don't really want to put animals into an area that they're going to be in a sink, right? Where they're isolated and they can't have genetic flow and dispersal of individuals. So when I started looking at how this would look, I looked at all the modeling and all the feasibility report and decided we were going to do a 5-year project. We were going to bring 10 cats back for 5 years. And the state, I don't know if you guys are familiar with their Fisher project, but they sort of had like a platform where they were going up to Canada and they were working with current trappers who were trapping these animals for fur. And they basically said, well, since you guys are sort of the experts and you're so great at trapping these animals, what if we just paid you to keep them alive? And they had success with that. And as you may or may not know, they've brought Fisher back to the Olympic Peninsula, and that's been an incredible success story. And so we jumped on that bandwagon and said, let's try that. So we went up to Canada And we met with trappers and we said, does this make sense to you? We met with the Trappers Association, and they said, well, come present at one of our meetings and see if any trappers are interested in it. And so we did. And we had 2 trap lines specifically that said, hey, we think that sounds fun. And so we started working with 2 different trap lines. And here you can see, here's the reservation here. This is Kelowna up in BC. And this white area where I have the lynx tracks is the general area where we were targeting. I've had a lot of people ask me, why are you targeting lynx in this area? Why not go further north into Canada where there's so many more lynx, where your success would be higher in trapping? You could do it in a week, you could have all of them. And I did it for a couple different reasons. And one of the reasons is I wanted the lynx that came back to the Kettle to be the lynx that would have come here naturally, right? It was very important for us that those lynx were the lynx that were in this same habitat zones. So they weren't, the lynx farther up north, it's more of a tundra. It's very different. Their hair cycles are very, very cyclic. It's just it's very different. It was important for us to have those animals be close. It was also very important for us. We do not take pride in handling animals as much as people say, oh, that must be the best part of your job when you get to trap and handle an animal. It's the worst part of my job. I get stressed out to the max of it, right? We want to handle these animals the least possible amount. They're a wild animal. We don't want to hold them in captivity. We don't want to expose them to extended amounts of stress. And so we thought, well, where can we go that we can trap them and release them as quickly as possible without having these big enclosures that other efforts like this have had to have, where they're holding them, they're feeding them for long periods of time, they're exposing them to people, and then releasing them onto a landscape. So our goal was to be able to go out, trap them, and then release them as quickly as possible. So this area made sense for us to do that. We reached out to BC. They said, yes, this area has enough lynx to support that. And then we had these amazing trappers that said, yeah, we're happy to do that with you. So year 1, what we did was we went out with the trappers, we learned their trap lines, and we began setting up traps. Now, these trappers have been trapping to take these pelts for fur, so they're doing kill traps. So these live traps are all new for them as well. So we were in for a big learning curve, for sure. So what does setting up a trap line look like? It looks like a lot of work. So, one of our trap lines, we only could get to it by ATVs. And we had these traps that you can see, we can fit 3 traps on an ATV at a time. And that's the trapper's nice fancy one. We could only fit 2 on ours. Going out, looking for lynx sign, setting up traps in an area. Each of our traps, every single trap that we set up, we put a game camera next to. We did that for a couple different reasons, but mostly because we wanted to learn how the lynx were reacting to our setup. Was it that they were attracted to the bait? Were they trying to go in but didn't want to go in? Did they not like the entrance? Did they not like the bottom? We had no idea what to expect. So we had cameras set up at each site. Each site was baited, scented, and then checked every morning. We set out at first light and checked traps every single day. So when we first started checking traps, everything that could go wrong absolutely went wrong. Everything that could break, broke. Everything that could freeze, froze. Everything that could get stuck, got stuck. We learned a lot. We laughed a lot. Some of us might have cried just a little bit. One of the things that kept us, it's an amazing group of people, and we owe the success of this project to the team that goes up there, because this wouldn't be possible without all of them. And that's what keeps us all going. Also, you'll see this very entertaining photo here. This is a little skunk. So at this point, this was our most sophisticated way of releasing a skunk. It's one branch that you use to sort of leverage your other branch, very, very very official tool here with a knife duct taped to the end. And then we would jab it into the door and pry it up and hope that the skunk came out. That was after we all had gotten sprayed a lot trying to use a tarp. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And so the first year we did a fall and a winter trapping session. And like I said, everything is harder in the snow. Everything is harder, everything breaks, everything freezes, everything takes longer. You also have way less amount of hours of daylight. So yeah, it was a big challenge. We learned a lot. But at the end of it, we caught cats, and that's what we were there to do. You know, we didn't catch all of them. This guy, he stayed in there and he came back again and again, and for some reason, we never caught him. He's still out there, better luck this year. But as you can see, we caught cats, and we caught them on snowmobiles, and we caught them on ATVs, and we caught them with trucks. And so, you know, when our team first went out there, we all said, we're just gonna be lucky if we even see a lynx track at that point. You know, that's kind of how we were. And then we started catching cats, and it was amazing. It was rewarding, it was humbling. It was an amazing experience, and all because of the team that I'm working with. So what happens once we catch a cat? Well, then we capture and process them. So as soon as we walk up or drive up and see that we have a cat in a cage, one individual will go up, cover the cat, the cage, so that cat settles down. And it really is amazing. If they can't see you, they just instantly settle right down. It's super important for us for those cats to settle down, because we want their heart rate to come down, we want their temperature to come down, because we're going to drug them, and when we drug them, we need them to be calm. We want them to metabolize those drugs in a predictable way, and we want their stress levels to be low, their temperatures to be low, because once they're under those drugs, they can't regulate their temperature. And so those are all things that we're considering. So we send one individual to cover, the rest of the team pulls back. Then the individuals that are trained to go up and drug that animal will go up, and they'll drug that animal, and then the team will come in. As you can see, we keep their eyes covered even when they're asleep, so they can still be stimulated. They can still have additional stress from movement and things like that. Everyone's very calm. Everyone's very quiet. And even though I see this a lot, and with new animal handlers, I'll see when we're stressed and our animals are stressed, this is what we do. It's okay, and that's your instinct as well, because you have a living animal breathing in front of you, and you do that. It's like that's not calming for them. Don't touch them, right? So you're trying to limit their exposure to your scent. All of that is going to be very foreign to them when they begin to wake up. So. This was a normal-aged female, middle-aged female. I don't remember the age of her, but she was not young. Yeah, I think they're smaller than people think they are. Yeah, and again, feel free to ask questions at any point. I want this to be. I just tend to talk and talk and talk. So please stop me at any point. Yes.
Sorry, I just have a question. So when you track them in their original habitat, are you tracking which, if there's moms and babies, or if they're in communities already?
Yeah, so lynx are solitary.
Oh, okay.
So the babies will stay with the moms. So part of the project is we only take eligible cats, so they can't be kittens. And they can't be mothers with kittens. And that's another thing that the camera helps us with, is if we catch a mom, we'll be able to see if she has kittens with her, if they're hanging around. And we have caught a kitten before, and the mom stayed there in close vicinity, and then we let it go. So, lynx are solitary. There's not a family dynamics like the wolves and those, so we don't worry so much about that, other than the moms and the kittens, which is definitely a concern, and so we're pretty diligent about monitoring that.
I have a question on the catching part as well.
Yeah.
Is the scent or the bait that you're using, is that something you think will attract lynx and not other animals? Or I saw you caught a skunk, or are you trapping bears or other predators?
So that answer will change in year 2, but in the first year, we were pretty much targeting lynx. And we're always targeting lynx, but what comes in changes a little bit. The first year, because we were trapping so late in the season, bears are hibernating. And it's, the skunks are coming in because we had meat. So they're coming in for the free snacks and not so much for the scent. And in that area where we did not come across wolves or cougars or bobcats coming into our trap sets because of the scent. There were wolf packs in the area where we were trapping. They are too smart to come to those traps. So trapping wolves is very, very different. Wolves are extremely, extremely wary of anything that smells like a human, anything. And all this stuff reeks of us because we're not careful at all, because cats don't care. They go off of curiosity, scent. They don't care if it smells like us. They don't care about any of that. So the wolves, they would go down the road and they wouldn't even stop and come into where our traps were. They knew they were there, but they were like, no, we know what that means and we're staying very clear of it. Yeah. So as you can see, all of us are wearing masks and gloves. So the first year that we went up there, actually the first year that we were supposed to, COVID hit and closed all the borders. So we sort of were in suspension. And then we got special passes to go up once the border was sort of open. They did allow us to go up. All of our team had COVID vaccinations, and we had to be tested within 72 hours of going up. We had to have a clear test because cats can get and will die from COVID. So we're not wearing that to protect us from the cat, we're wearing that to protect the cat from us. So gloves and masks on any of the individuals touching the animals. You can see here that this cat is being continuously monitored. Here she has her new collar, checking her teeth for age, body condition. We want to take animals that are robust and healthy so that they have the best success as they come down here to a new area.
Her teeth look really clean. Do they have good breath?
Her teeth look very clean. Yeah, she's sort of a younger cat, so very clean, very sharp canines. But maybe because they eat only good organic stuff, right? They're just up there. So at the end of year 1, we had 9 lynx, and we were ecstatic. I mean, we went up there just saying if we see lynx tracks and see a lynx, we're going to consider us lucky. And we came back with 9, and we were overjoyed. It was an amazing experience. You can see the faces of the biologists. You know, this was what we had all worked hours and hours and hours for, was to bring these cats home, and we did it, and it was amazing. So as you had asked, you see that little cute face? That cat was released on the line. It was a kitten. It was too small to be a part of the study. One of the things, it's not just the size for success for survival, it's also these collars. They're not super light, and they can only be, usually it's like a 5% of body weight. I try and do more like a 3% of body weight. So she just wasn't big enough to even hold the weight of the collar. So it's more than one reason why we don't like to take the little cats. So what we did was we held the cats overnight. The cats were inspected by a veterinarian, and by inspected, they were not handled, they were not drugged, that was just a visual check. They were not touched by a veterinarian or anything, so very minimally intrusive. They're just checked, then they get their little vet certificate, and they come across the border, and we drive them down and up into the center of the reservation at the south end of the Kettle Crest, and we let them go. The releases from the first year were incredibly well received by the community, incredibly well received by the tribal membership. It was in every newspaper around. We were getting called to interview. We were getting called, can we come out and see a release? It was overwhelming, the amount of support that the tribe was getting for this amazing project. And it was really amazing to be a part of and to watch these cats returning to an area that they once roamed naturally. It was very rewarding, and it's sort of why we do the work we do, is for reasons like this.
Rose, when you, out of your 9 cats, were you going for a certain sex ratio?
Yeah, we want to have like 70% females, which we never get, but that's what we would like, right? The males, we only need a couple of you guys out there, sorry, but the females are where the gold is. So again, as in like the buffalo, right? Like we're only successful once we start having young, and that's where we'll measure that. And so we need males, we just don't need quite as many. So, so yeah, we definitely are wanting more females, and so we would try and be picky, but at that point, we're just happy to get cats on the ground. Yeah.
Is that person a scientist, or were the tribal folks involved in the release? Or?
So the person in the back in the black coat is Corey Pion. He's another district biologist, and Shelley Boyd is a tribal member from the reservation. She's part of the Sinaiks band that just got their rights back all the way up into Canada. Mm-hmm. So year 2 came, and I started getting greedy. I said, well, we got 9 cats, and that was great, but man, was it a lot of work. We had snowmobiles breaking, we had trucks in ditches, we had snowstorms shut us down. You know, you're hauling all your gear out there, and drugs are freezing, and there's all kinds of stuff that happens when it's snowy and you're processing animals, and everything is harder. And also, I don't like being cold. And so I said, well, what if we decided to trap when it's not snowing earlier? And they said, oh, no. We trap cats in the winter. And I said, right, but the reason you trap cats in the winter is because this is what you want them to be like when you're done trapping them. Right? And this is what you want. You want thick, beautiful furs. I don't want thick, beautiful furs. I want live cats. And so I said, well, let's try it. And they said, well, what about bears? And I said, well, even if a bear smashes a couple of my traps and I still get all my cats early, win-win. I'll take that. And I said, well, what about moms and kittens? I said, well, okay, yeah, moms and kittens. And so they said, what about non-target species? And I said, okay, there's non-target species. So how can we mitigate some of this stuff? Because I really want to try trapping early. So they said, okay, well, don't use live bait or meat bait. You know, let's use just scent and see if that works. And set your cameras out early to see if there's bears in the area. And if you have a prevalent bears in that area, don't arm that trap yet. And I said, okay, that sounds great. Let's try it. We also purchased a new trap design, because those wooden traps, they were successful, but they were very cumbersome. So moving them around to new spaces, it was just logistically a lot. I'm not trying to complain, but it was not super efficient.
What about the stress levels? Like you said, the cold helps with that. Did you have a different way of making them less stressed?
So I wanted to bring the cats back to a central processing location instead of doing it in the field. And I felt that that was going to help mitigate some of that stress. It was all sort of a guess at this point, or a hypothesis, I suppose I'm supposed to say. So we went armed second year. We had all these concerns that we had, and we said we're going to change the processing location. I did change the release sites. The first year, we were driving way up into the mountains and having to have 4-wheel drive chains, and, you know, because it's rugged, and that's what we do. We're dealing with lynx, and they're high elevation species. And what I realized was the cats are going to move where they want to move and be way less stressed than bouncing around in the back of a truck for another 10 miles for me to feel that I'm really getting them out there in perfect lynx habitat. So we had an area that was very easy to get to, and we decided to release all the cats in the same location. I had collar data from the previous year's cats to know that, or to say semi-confidently that they would be able to find enough food in that area to be released there. So we started, and we started early in the fall. You can see the sunshine with some of these new traps. We did have snow, but it was at the very, very end. And so we went out and we tried it, and what happened? Every single thing that they said we were going to have a problem with, we had a problem with. Did we have grizzly bears? Yes, we had grizzly bears. There's my trap upside down in the back. Did we have skunks? Yes. Did we have black bears? Yes. Did we have cats with kittens? Yes. But will the cats come in without meat? This cat, as you can see right there, had a collar. He was one of our first-year cats, and he was so traumatized by the experience that he decided to try again. So he came back, and we caught him again. And what else did we find? Yes, we can catch cats early in the season, and we can catch them without meat. We can catch them just with scent, and we can be successful. So that was a huge efficient change that our team did, was trapping these cats in an easier season.
Is their range typically that broad? Like because that cat went from the reservation all the way back to Canada?
Right. So those are some of the questions we're trying to answer. And everyone said, oh my gosh, we're so sorry you lost a cat back to Canada. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm so thrilled that it was a male, first of all. That's fine. And that, yes, we did lose a cat back to Canada, but he gave us amazing data of where can lynx travel between those southern BC populations and the Kettle Crest. And that data and that information was a huge part of this project, because now we know that there is a permeable area to that landscape and there is connectivity, and we can look at how can we preserve those areas for them to move. So we caught cats, and this was a huge snowstorm that literally shut down the entire town of Kelowna, and we got our cat out. That was our last cat, our 10th cat. We caught all 10 that day of the storm, thankfully, because then we would have been shut down out of our trap line. So amazing success the second year. We took the cats back to a centralized area to process the cats. That also was incredibly successful. One of the reasons it was incredibly successful was that every member of our team got to be a part of every cat that was handled. And so we were just making each one of our members more and more experienced in handling those cats and being able to learn how to do it better, faster, and less invasive. The other thing that happened was when you walk up to the cage that the cat is in, they are super stressed. Even if they don't look super stressed, they're super stressed. And the next thing you do is you drug them. So what we were doing was we were bringing them back to a central location, leaving them alone in a quiet, dark area. Very quietly, one person was going out there, and they were drugging that animal, and our success with drugging and the way that they were metabolizing those drugs was it was very predictable, and that's what we wanted. So, and very controlled. A lot of what goes into the processing of an animal is the energy of your team, and the team was very calm, very strategic in everything that they did. You weren't working out of a pickup and doing all of those things and trying to figure out where everything is. We had our permanent station set up. Everything was very calculated, very, very smooth, and so our processing went very smooth. As you can see, we're still protecting those cats from any of our germs that we have. And so then we would hold the cats in their travel kennels overnight, and we were feeding those cats, which was incredibly satisfying. And a couple of reasons it's satisfying. Lynx, I had a biologist once tell me, every lynx is one rabbit away from starvation. And you know, when we all sort of had to recalibrate our minds of thinking, when you get an animal in hand, you do a body condition. And so you're looking at the deposits of the fat on that animal's body. You're looking for injuries. You're looking for all of those types of things. And the first lynx we all had, we were like, oh my gosh, he's starving. He's not going to make it. But they're a very thin animal. They're not like a bear. They're not putting on weight. They're not putting on pounds for the winter. They're very lean, and they're always very lean. And so, So one of the things that we were able to do when we got these animals in hand was we got to feed them. So it was like, okay, that one hare that they were away from before starving, now we just bought them another day, right? So that was a very satisfying thing to be able to do. And also, to me, which I may be projecting, I don't even know if this is true, this is more what I think of with domestics, but if an animal eats, then you are sort of making an assumption that their stress level is low enough for them to be able to do that. So that's very satisfying in that sense of, if they're eating, you're hoping that their stress level is a little bit lower. So we got all 10 cats that second year, and look at us releasing them in the sunshine. We're able to drive right to where we want to be, up in that lynx habitat. You know, they're coming out looking robust and going off on their own from there. So every single cat that we release is fit with a radio collar, a GPS and radio collar, so we can find them with telemetry as well as track them on my phone and computer. I get a map that looks similar to this, and it shows me, and you can see that was that first male. There he went, straight up there. We also had a couple other cats come up. So, so each cat, I can start monitoring the day that it's released. So super important for us. Also, those collars are programmed that if that lynx doesn't move for 8 hours, I get an instant message on my phone that says you have a mortality, and I can go directly to that and try and recover that carcass. This is where Jacques came from. He was one of those, very unfortunate. When you mark animals, you know the outcome of every single animal, but animals die in wild, right? We don't know when they die. We don't always know why they die. But his role is now for education for this project, so he travels with me.
Now, you were mentioning feeding them. Do they need a rabbit a day? I mean, what's it take for carrying one on them?
That's a good question. I wish I had a better answer for you. But they need to eat at least every other day is what I've sort of been told. Yeah. And about 90% of their diet is made up of snowshoe hares. In the winter, specifically. In the spring and summer, they're eating a lot more squirrels, grouse, and I mean, they're gonna eat anything they can catch. So, you know, they're gonna be opportunistic feeders for sure. But in the wintertime, this is their advantage. These snowshoes that they have, that just makes them be able to outcompete any of the other predators in that high elevation snow habitat. So who lives up there? The rabbits, the snowshoe hare. And so that's why they've evolved together.
Do they hunt during the day or at night?
They do hunt during the day. Yep. Mm-hmm.
There, what does each dot represent? Are those like timestamps?
So yeah, this map, it's kind of an interesting map. I throw it in there just to give a visual, but really, you're right, maps that don't have anything attached to it are sort of just, they can be dangerous, right? So each of these spots is a point that a cat was at. So each cat's collar takes a point every 13 hours. So those are individual cats. So like this blue, that's one cat. That was that cat that you saw the picture of. His name was Grandfather. He was the very first male that was brought back. And we have, so you can see there's a movement here, and we've also established another movement route here. So there's been, this was the first year's cat data, so now we've added a lot to that, and I could update this map. And if it went all the way up here into the ceiling, this summer I had a cat go, he's about 150 miles north of Revelstoke. So that's by far the farthest movement that we've seen, for sure. Like, all the other cats that have gone back to Canada have gone back to the same areas that they were found, except this male that went all the way to Revelstoke, and interestingly enough, a female followed him. I don't know why she did that. She should have stayed down. But yeah, so that's a point every 13 hours of each individual cat of the first year's cats. So we go out, we can look at track surveys, we have cameras, and then this is Corey doing telemetry work. So this is a depiction of the Kettle crest, and this yellow, whatever you want to call it, color is the 4,000 feet mark. So when people always talk about lynx, they always talk about that magic 4,000 foot mark. We don't like to manage by an elevation band, but that's kind of hard to argue with when you look at it. Where's my little thing? I lost it. You know, this is where the models said that the cats would be, and they're very much following the rules and staying within where they're supposed to be. You know, you're always going to have cats come check stuff out, but that doesn't mean that they liked what they saw. That just means they went out there. And so when you look at your clusters, they're all in that zone that's above 4,000 feet, and that's all in that Kettle crest area that all the models and all the biologists said, this is where we think that they're going to hang out, and they are.
In the middle of winter, they're 5,000 and 6,000 feet in the middle of winter.
In the middle of winter.
Holy cow.
How do they do in fragmented landscapes? You know, Canada logs pretty heavily too.
Canada logs a lot, and the population seems stable up there. So
Heavily fragmented, you know, in different stages of regrowth, they're okay.
So that's one of the things that we're looking at, and that's one of the things that the Loomis population is looking at very closely as well. It is a working forest over there. The DNR manages their forest, their Loomis forest. And so one of the things that we're looking at is how are lynx reacting to management or fire, both of which affect the landscape and setback succession. As long as there's enough intact habitat and it's all connected, and they can get food while moving across those landscapes, we're seeing them move through non-optimal habitat. But as long as they get rabbits, I think they can do it. If you remove that small game, that's, I think, where we're going to start seeing the problems. But it's also only year 3. So we have a lot to learn still, for sure. I need to update this. Like I said, I just have that one guy who's now up in Revelstoke, so this guy gets beat out now. He's not the famous guy anymore. So last year, year 3, this is our famous cat Tuto. You see his white toe. He's showing up on all the photos because he's so charismatic. So we did the early trapping again. It just was so successful the second year. It was easy on the cats, easy on the crew, so we did that again. We were not as successful this year, although we did trap and relocate cats, but we only got 7 cats this year. Everyone told me that was good. I said, I'm kind of a 90 or 100% kind of girl, but we had other things happen in our department with big game surveys and wolves and other species stuff that came up in the winter, and we made the decision to shut down trapping for the winter instead of.
How long are you out trapping? You might have said it already.
No, I didn't. So we were only out for a month this year. Mm-hmm. Yep. So the first year we trapped into February, which runs up into our aerial surveys, and then we have all kinds of other stuff happening. I'm hoping to get done in a month this year as well. Fingers crossed. With 10, not 7. So for the rest of my presentation, I have 2 videos that I'd like to share. One of them is a little bit more of a formal video. It has narration, and it's 7 minutes long, I think. And then I have a 10-minute long one, which we can talk during and be interactive, and we can have questions and answers. It's game camera footage from the trap line, and everybody always really seems to enjoy it, so I know that it's 8 o'clock and I only have you till 8, but if you want to stick around and watch that video, it is a lot of fun, but also if you need to get up and stretch your legs or ask questions or anything, feel free to do that. I'll play the 7-minute one first, and then the game camera one, I'll kind of talk about what you're seeing and answer any questions, and it can kind of be a little bit more.
And you have some kittens?
So we have documented that 2 females have had kittens, but we don't know if those kittens have survived. So this winter, we hope to, well, we have a lot of game cameras out, so the hope is that there's kittens on those cameras. And if not, then when we go out this winter and do surveys, we'll kind of concentrate the track surveys on females that we suspect had kittens, and hopefully be able to see that she's not traveling alone. So, yeah, and so that'll be, that's our next big hurdle. So we, WSU is doing another big camera effort with the Forest Service, Conservation Northwest, DNR, the state, and us, and we're putting out a bunch of cameras in the Kettle Crest right now, and one of their cameras already turned back a picture of a lynx that did not have a collar but had an ear tag. So all of our collars, yeah, one sec. All of our collars, well, I changed collars, so now they have two mechanisms, but this is just a bit of cotton, and so the idea is that that will break away eventually, so that they won't wear this forever. So we got a picture of a cat with no collar but an ear tag. So we know it was one of our first or second year cats, that he's still there, and that he dropped his collar. So it was like that. So we do know that cats, even though our collars have died, because the battery only lasts so long, we do know that some of those cats from first year are still out there in the kettles. They're remaining there, even though we have some leaving. So we know we have cats in the kettles. Now we just need to confirm that we have kittens surviving in the kettles. So that's our next big thing. Also, you guys can feel free to come look at these pelts. I will ask that you don't touch Jacques, as he is a little bit more fragile. This is a bobcat. I just like to bring it so that you can kind of see the size difference between the two. And also one of the big things, because you know, in wintertime it's very easy to tell when they have these feet that are just gigantic and you have the perfect view. One of the things that we look for is this tail that looks like it's been dipped in ink versus, where are you? The tail that looks like that until you turn it over and it's white on the bottom. So, and a lot of times people will get pictures of bobcats on game cameras and their little tail is actually kind of sticking out back behind them, and you can see that white spot. Not always, and sometimes it's very hard to tell when they're on camera which one it is, especially if they're both in summer. But also, like, if you look at the size of the feet, wow. I mean, when I had a picture earlier up of one of the guys who's a big guy, and you know, that cat's paw is huge, and they really are this big. They're pretty amazing. All right,
Tell us the standard weight difference. I mean, what does a lynx run versus a bobcat? You said bobcats were like 30 pounds.
So this was one of our largest males, and he came in around 30 pounds.
Yeah. Wow.
So that was one of our largest males. So I would say we like our females to be about 21, 22 pounds, and our males to be in the high 20s.
So bobcats are really tiny.
So bobcats are really tiny compared to that.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of fluff to them, but when you get them in hand, there's not much to them. Okay, so I'm going to play this first one, and like I said, this is the one that we just kind of watch, and then the second one is the one that we can talk around. I actually don't know where that is. It's not on my...
One of the tribe's biggest goals, the department's biggest goals, is to restore native species that aren't here, that still could be. Lynx fell into that category. It's been
we did troubleshoot this in the beginning, and it worked.
For some time now, and all the stars aligned, and it started happening. The planning started 2018-19 for a 5-year project of bringing lynx in from Canada. Today is October the 10th, 2022, so this is year 2. It started in 2021. Last year we were successful capturing and bringing down 9 lynx. Got 9 out of the 10 was the goal. So I had a good first year. Definitely had some trial and errors and did some learning. And yeah, this year is a really good start. This is number 2 for the year. We just started in beginning of October. This is number 2. Word is that number 3 was caught today, so there'll be another transplant tomorrow. We're working with local trappers. Trap lines are registered to certain individuals or families, and so we're working with locals up there on their trap lines. And so far so good. They've been great to work with. The traps are 2x2 wood frame with chicken wire around it so you can see all the way through, and then bait hooked to basically kind of a guillotine drop style door. And once a lynx goes in, messes with the bait, the door drops. And there are 2 main trap lines, a total of about 50 traps set, so about 25 per line. And then they're checked daily. Trail cams are on most, if not all, of the traps. So getting some really cool pictures and videos of interactions with the lynx coming in. Yeah, it's amazing. We've had 3 from 2021, 3 out of the 9 returned to Canada. 2, last time I looked, were right in the heart of where they were trapped, which is pretty amazing. You think about all the topography they've had to go to get from here to there. It's pretty mind-blowing. Yeah, the trappers, as they were setting up traps in the beginning of this year, 2022, they actually seen one of the collared ones when they were bringing traps out. When they were driving in, they come around the corner, and there's one of the ones that we trapped and released here with the collar, and it had went all the way back up. So yeah, three made it back. Yeah, the long-term goal of this project is for 5 years of trap and transport with the goal of 10 lynx, up to 10 lynx per year. So this is year 2 of the project. We got 9 in 2021, and so far this year, 3. So yeah, we still got another 3.5 years to go. So yeah, a total of a goal of 50. Tribal members have been really open and accepting of this project and lynx returning to the landscape. I haven't heard anything negative at all. There seems to be a real excitement around this project, especially since people can come and view the releases. The Colville Tribes and the 12 bands all agree that everything has a place here on the landscape. Lynx were here. They were trapped out, and so we're just bringing them back to where they belong. There are a few remnants, a few detections of before this project, a few trail cam pics of a male and a female, but obviously not enough to thrive. So we're just trying to help bring them back and restore balance to what it once was.
It's going to happen again, right? When I open the second one. Some of that you'll see as a repeat because some of the game footage. Oh, actually, that was it, but. Yep. We had a lot of footage like this where the cats were coming in but not, they're marking, they're scenting around and then not going in the trap. Super frustrating. But this one, that's the most frustrating is when you had a cat come up and with this one to a trap that's already been set off by something.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons we went to the metal traps is that's a complete loss of an opportunity. You know, if the cat just doesn't go in, you're like, okay, he didn't go in. But if he couldn't go in, then that's where we're like, okay, if we reduce those instances out there, how much more successful can it be? So the scent that we use in the trap is it's actually sort of like an evergreen sort of anise fennel scent. So we have a scent like that. So this guy, he spent that whole snowstorm in there, and that trap malfunctioned. We don't know why it didn't go off. And he just like, we have amazing footage from him because he was there for a long time, but it was like, really? Yeah, so we have a couple different scents, and then we have some scents that are more of like a predator call scent that's more of a harsh scent.
What's the population density in a healthy population on a scale?
Yeah, sorry. Oh, you saw that one. Density would be, so what we want for the whole Kettle Crest, we want about 24. So you want about, you know, I'm not sure what density we would want, but
I guess the question is, what is a territory size?
okay, yeah, so for the lynx that are in the southern BC, what I'm seeing from the trapping is that I think their territories are smaller than we previously thought. I wouldn't say that their territories or home ranges are smaller. I would say I think there's more overlap than we originally thought. And the reason I think that is because we're trapping cats and then seeing other cats in traps that are close by. And so I think that their home ranges are smaller than what we originally, or more overlap than what we originally thought. So I think that they can be denser than what we were originally thinking.
Yeah, I wonder if you're like cougars where you've got a male with a big territory that will tolerate.
For sure. For sure. And the females will set up a territory close to their mother. Not always, but we tend to see that as they sort of move out on a landscape, is the female lynx will set up a territory fairly close to her moms and overlapping with her moms. So those are marten, and they were like our best little buds out there. They stole our bait all the time, but most of the time they didn't set off the trap, so we didn't care, and we just rebait it and come back because they were so adorable. And you saw the one of him slipping through the wire.
Yeah.
That little guy made a liar of me because I was like, oh, I don't want to catch marten. I don't. And they're like, oh, the marten can get out of those catches. And I was like, no, they can't. And then sure enough, there he goes. I was like, oh yeah, you're right.
Did you have any? Do fishers and pine martens have the same territory, live in the same?
Yeah. So one of the lines that we were trapping had the trapper did trap for fisher up there. We never got any on cameras, and he wasn't trapping them anymore. But historically, he had. But we had. So that video was one of the first times we ever heard a lynx call in the wild. So that was pretty awesome. Yeah, so when we were talking about the bears coming in and destroying our traps, actually they were very gentle with them. Like that trap was completely in working order when we got there. We just had to turn it right side up and reset it, and it was fine. So we had very few traps that were destroyed by bears.
Oh, I know. When you said you covered the cage and then they calmed right down, they're not scenting, they're not hearing, it's their sight.
It's both. They know that we're still there.
Yeah.
So this was the little kitten that we caught, and his mom stayed around the cage. We could hear them calling to each other. Right? Like, how can you not respect the skunk? He's totally trying to take on a grizzly bear, and he is not backing down. So you saw the stick method. We decided that was too cumbersome. This was the year 3 method. This is the method we stick with. Anyone who comes up to trap, they have to do this. That's their, and you know, it's like, oh, you want to come with us on the trap line? Your skunk release.
Oh man. Oh man.
It is scary the first time you decide you have to be the one that's doing it. And I will say that when we switched to that method, no one has gotten sprayed by a skunk yet.
Wow.
Since we got rid of the big scary tarp method that was walking towards them, no one has gotten sprayed. So we like to say it's a judgment of character whether you get sprayed when you go through that. So far we've all passed. So, but a ton of skunks. Skunks also very territorial. So when we have a trap, so this is us transferring one of the cats into the into the kennel so that we could process them at a different location. A very slick method, works amazingly when you have a team of folks.
How long after they're trapped are you able to get to them to collect them? Like how much time?
Depends on what time they go in the traps. Yep, so we're there, well, until we got the footage of that super big grizzly bear coming right at first light, we were actually running the trap line while it was still dark in the morning. And then we changed. When I kept seeing those grizzlies checking at like 4 or 5 in the morning. So we bumped it to when it was light out. So we check it at first light. But you can see they're not super stressed as long as we're not there. They're still stressed. Don't think that they aren't. But, you know, and he was a little more agitated, but look at her. Yeah.
Why do they have like the hair coming off?
The little tufts? Yep, I'm not sure what the actual purpose of it is. I don't know if it helps them kind of sort of locate and hear movement in the snow and the quiet environment up there. And I need to fix the hearing on that. She actually is growling while she's doing that. And it's great. It's like she's saying, well, I am accepting this, but I don't like you, and it's not, you know, let's make it good. This was the video, one of the videos that I was like, maybe we should wait till it's light to be walking up onto those traps. And you see that cat looks a lot thinner. His feet look a lot smaller in that, you know, but you can still see that real dark tail. Some big bears out there. But we just, you know, we never really had problems with them. They didn't really bother our traps. They kind of come check them out and move on. But this one might be a growl. We never had a bobcat come up. We never had a bobcat come on any of our cameras.
You think that's an elevation?
I think it's an elevation, and I think it's a territory thing.
And in other words, I bet the Lynx would prey on bobcats.
I think the Lynx is just superior, and so he keeps them out of there, and then, you know, there's less competition if they go lower.
Like the wolf and coyote.
Yeah. And these guys have such determined. I love them. It's so great. Yeah, he was more stressed than the Lynx in there.
I'm in the wrong place. Wow.
These guys were some of our worst guys the first year. They would land on our line and set our traps constantly. So we switched methods actually because of them specifically. We missed a lot of cats because of them, or potential opportunity for a cat.
So because bobcats don't have that snowshoe feature, they probably don't, I mean, that's probably why they're hanging down lower, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, in the winter they just can't get up there.
Yeah.
You know, like if there's a snowmobile trail that's packed, you'll see coyotes and bobcats and stuff going higher elevations if they have that hard surface that they can walk on. But naturally they wouldn't be up there. They just can't, they're not successful chasing animals on that kind of snow.
Yeah.
So they go down and they stay in the lower elevations. And
so they're really not competing.
they really aren't competing. No, and we're not seeing, I mean, there's definitely room for studies for that. I know that we've been asked by a lot of folks, you know, are we looking at the way that the other predators are reacting to the lynx returning to the Kettle Crest? And there's 100 research questions that could accompany this project. We just don't have the capacity to answer them all, and to, you know, you have to mark animals differently to get different data. And right now, the main goal of our project is to see, do they stay, and where do they go if they don't stay? How do they travel back to Canada? So right now, like I mentioned, we're getting a point every 13 hours. We do every 13 hours so that it rotates slowly and you get points at different times of the day, instead of every 12 hours where you only know what they're doing at that time of day. And so, you know, to get interactions with other predators, and even to get very good like habitat selection information, you'd have to program these to take points way more frequently, and they'd only last a couple months at that point. And at this point in the project, survival and success of whether the cats stay there is really the biggest question we're trying to answer. But it is hard to have all that potential for all of that research right there at your fingertips. But, you know, hopefully if the population establishes, then, you know, future studies can happen that could be more site-specific or specific to questions like that, like how are other predators reacting.
Move them to, there's a sufficient population of their prey species.
Yeah, yep. So there's been a couple different studies of snowshoe hare densities in the kettles, and they've all shown that we have densities to do that. And more than the studies, the cats are surviving. Right, so they're finding areas where they're finding sufficient food. We haven't done like scat analysis study to see what percentage of what they're eating is snowshoe hare. Have they changed, and are they eating a higher percentage of grouse and squirrels or ground squirrels, or, you know, we don't know that. But we assume, since they're staying through the winter and at the elevations that they are, that they're being successful in catching rabbits.
Just a million questions of, will you move them to this habitat, why did they go back? They're solitary. They're not going back for family.
Well, so I think a lot of the dominant males are going back because they have an established home range there and a territory. But of course, that theory gets blown out of the way when a young female goes back. Go ahead.
Have you seen the wolverine?
We have not, unfortunately. Yeah, I would love to at least even get one on film.
You don't want one in your cage.
I don't really want one in my cage. I'm not sure I would get one in my cage. I don't know that there would be much left of my cage by the time I got there. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to mention the David Moskowitz's name.
Yes.
Associated with this, and he has a really fantastic Instagram channel for a Wolverine project.
Yes. Yeah.
It's definitely worth
The Wolverine Project has, yeah, it's fascinating.
It's amazing.
It's actually like mind-blowing to look at where they are. And
so cool.
so I don't know if it's on that specific page, but I remember seeing a summary of some of that one time, and they did they had the GPS data of where the wolverine was, and then they had like the Weather Channel information of what it looked like, where that guy was at that time, and it was like, how could he be surviving there? It was really interesting. Yeah, that's
much beefier cage.
yeah. Oh yeah. When they trap those, it's like logs like this that make up those wolverine cages. Yeah.
Were grizzly bear native to the Kettle Crest area previously?
Yes, I think that they were.
So is the Colville tribe looking at reintroducing theirs there too, or just waiting to see what happens with the
No, the tribe is not looking at reintroducing grizzly bears. Grizzly bears, I think, are going to return on their own, and they already are, traveling south. And also, just in case anyone has any questions about wolves, we didn't reintroduce wolves either. They recolonized on their own. And so if the grizzly bear comes back, it will do it that way as well. So there's no interest in relocating grizzlies to the reservation at this time. Great. Thank you guys so much. Sorry, I I went a little late. I know.
That was awesome. Thank you, Rose, so much. And thank you all again for coming. If you enjoyed this program, I'll pull up or if you didn't enjoy it, either way, I'll pull up the feedback thing. If you have a moment, I'd really appreciate that. If you enjoyed it, if you want to consider donating, we have the basket over there and a little QR code. I'd really appreciate that as well. But either way, hope to see you at another WRI event. Check out our calendar and our e-news for other things going on. So we'll see you